Hi everyone, thank you for joining this webinar on the National Highways Hazard Protection on Roads Accelerator. We've got a lot to cover today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining. Next slide, please. Okay, so today we have got a safety moment from National Highways to kick us off. I will then be doing an introduction to the Catapult and who we are. National Highways will then be setting the scene. We will then go through the challenges that the accelerator is seeking to address. I'll then cover the programme and how to apply. And then we have a nice amount of time at the end for questions. So please do ask questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, hopefully. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording will be shared on our website and directly with anyone who has registered to attend. Next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce Ben Captesize, the Senior Traffic Technologist, for our safety moment.
Thanks, Natasha. So if we go on to the next slide, they say a picture paints 1,000 words. So this vehicle was presented to my friend who's owns a garage and is an MOT tester. As you can see on the top left, there's a significant gash in the sidewall that had been rubber glued together. He was about to fail it after peeling away the flap, significant damage, but his colleague pointed out that no cords were visible. So they went back to the book and checked. This damage on the tyre was an advisory. So this car is a BMW X5, approximately 2.4 tons. This car was let onto the road with an advisory, and the driver was very nonchalant about the recommendation of getting that tyre changed as soon as possible. So it's a question for yourselves. Would you drive this? Would you feel comfortable knowing that this car is on the road? So the moral of the story here is that the MOT is not a full and comprehensive safety check. It's a very basic level of checking. You as drivers, or us as drivers, should be taking ownership to check the car and make good anything that could be an issue within the year. Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you, Ben. Brilliant. Okay, so that's our safety moment done. Please, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, introduction to Connected Places Catapult. Who on earth are we? Who am I? So I'm Natasha Giroux, the Accelerator Program Manager, who is going to be running this accelerator for the next year, and I'm really excited. Next slide, please, Kat. So Connected Places Catapult is the UK's innovation accelerator for cities, transport, and place leadership. Next slide, please. The Catapult network brings together 9 leading technology and innovation centres spanning over 40 locations across the UK, as you can see on the map. These cover fields such as the built environment, critical infrastructure, health and well-being, etc. And Connected Places Catapult focuses on places and transport. Next slide, please. Why are we qualified to deliver this accelerator on behalf of National Highways? Well, we have the technical and market expertise to do that due diligence, provide that technical support. We have a network of over 4,500 small medium enterprises. And so we can do that scouting piece, make sure we're getting the most quality applications. We have an events team, we track our impact, etc. And finally, we are a neutral convening power. So we have access to market actors, commercial partners, policymakers, funding opportunities. And we are not investing in anyone. We are working solely on behalf of our client to accelerate innovation. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm really pleased to introduce James Gibson, the Head of Strategy in the Digital Services and SES team at National Highways, to set the scene. Thanks, James.
Thank you, Natasha. Hello, everyone. If we go straight on to the next slide. Before I begin, I think Ben's safety moment was absolutely and completely relevant to what we're talking about today, and what could become a potential hazard in our definition for what we're working to on this. So just to go back, so it all came about as part of our drive for continuous improvement, and we've got various strategies that some of you will be aware of. If not, that they'll be shared. But it all comes down to our ultimate aim of having zero harm on our network, and in line with the 6 pillars of the safe system, which is there on the slide. And many of the challenges that the great CPC colleagues will get onto later on will hit more than one of those at a time. So this initially came from an idea from our CEO and the exec. What more can we do? What aren't we doing? And how can we get into places, get new ideas that we've not thought of before? And that came about as a hackathon. But we quickly came to the conclusion that wasn't enough. That would have been very much of the same ideas, very much of the same solutions that we're already familiar with. So since August, we've been working with, like I said, the colleagues at CPC to build this out and ensure that we're taking or making most of what innovation is around, and be able to get to develop it. So to get there, we've had numerous workshops, we've developed what the challenges will be, and they've been through a massive amount of internal stakeholders. So this is a true one company innovation competition, and we'll get onto those in a sec. So if I go on to the next slide, please. So it's probably just important to note that we do have existing systems out there. So we've got Midas and we've got the stop vehicle detection. This isn't about replacing those. This is about innovating and doing more. So they're existing systems that are there, but the challenges do relate to elements of those existing systems, such as the gathering performance data around them. So you'll see that as we get through it. So we really need to see what can complement that, what can take us further. And my next and final slide, please. So we just want to make the strategic road network even safer. We want to think in ways that we've not already considered, and we really want your help on these. Perhaps we're exhausted our own ideas. Perhaps we're talking continually amongst ourselves, and really want to open that up a bit. So we're really looking forward to your responses and getting the chance to work with you. So that's me. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you, James. So a quick reminder to please put any questions in the Q&A as we go along, as well as at the end. You'll probably have some questions about scope that Pierre's about to cover now. So please do use that chat function. So Pierre, really pleased to have you here. Please, can you introduce yourself and then explain to our audience the challenges that this accelerator is going to be?
With pleasure. Thank you, Natasha. So starting by introducing myself, my background is mostly in strategy and innovation consulting. And for the purpose of this project, I was working with the Connected Places Catapult and National Highways, as well as several others, as I'll tell you in a moment, to scope out the accelerator and figure out what the challenges should be. And as they've mentioned already, the final scope definition that we came up with is hazard protection on roads. So really about protecting road users and operators from any type of hazard in the widest sense of the word that could occur on roads. So in terms of the process that we used to get there, we had a very long process involving, like James said, many different stakeholders. So I interviewed over 40 people across different teams from National Highways, as well as different industry partners, so tier 1 partners, including companies like Balfour Beatty, et cetera. And the goal of that was really to make sure that we identified challenges that would be impactful, where there's actually innovation to be had, and where these will have a positive impact on road safety. So without further ado, I'd like to jump into sharing what the actual challenges were that came out. So if you could jump to the next slide, please. The first one is around gathering data about hazards on roads. So the idea here is that there are some systems already in place to gather data on hazards on roads. We want to expand and complement these. And the vision for this challenge is to have an entire system consisting of many different detection systems of different types. A few examples of types of systems could be satellite detection of hazards or using satellite data, using the existing CCTV network on some roads, or even installing new ones if needed, using any type of in-car data. So if a car is stopped in the road, there may be some way to receive information if it crashed, for example, or even user-reported hazards. If someone reports that there was a car accident or that there's an obstruction, that's a source of data that could absolutely be used to detect hazards. So this is a very open challenge, of course. The idea is really to complement the existing systems to create a complementary system with multiple layers of detection. Next challenge is kind of the next step. So what happens once we've identified those hazards? The challenge today is that this is a very manual process. So road operators in control rooms will have to take a few steps in order to manage them. So confirm that there actually is a hazard, and then potentially in some cases choose what to do. Some elements of that are automated, others are not. So the idea is to create a completely automated system that can take data from many different detection systems, combine it together, and to the extent that it's feasible, automate the action and the response to that hazard that was identified. And the responses could include different types. So it could be notifying drivers, for example, by activating or deactivating signs on the road. Potentially automating cleanup of hazards, even though this is maybe more of a long shot or would require some more innovation, and notifying the appropriate professionals. So in some cases, you might want to try to notify traffic officers automatically if they need to act and intervene to remove a hazard. And the goal here, if we put it shortly, is just to automate the whole process and have a really streamlined, accurate, and quick way of responding to hazards that are identified on roads. So moving on to challenge number 3 on the next slide. This is a very specific challenge. It's probably the most narrow one in the accelerator. And this is around making sure that once a hazard is identified and we've notified drivers, that they're actually able to respond to that. So in some cases, a driver might be distracted or something, for example, or they might be tired, whatever the exact challenge is, and they might just not notice that there's a sign or not respond to it as much as we'd like them to. So with this challenge, we're looking at innovative ways to inform drivers of any hazard to make sure that no accidents occur whatsoever, just due to driver inattention, for example. So a few examples, but this is, again, a wide open challenge. We're asking for innovative solutions, would be in-car notifications. So if you could have an alarm or something in the car that would notify you that you're driving into a dangerous location with a hazard that's been identified, or if it could be integrated with the sat-nav, for example. Next challenge. So the next challenge is around testing hazard detection technology. So the challenge today is it's very difficult to test this technology, especially in the real world, which means that it's not always easy to know if any software update being rolled out is actually an improvement or is making things worse. Of course, that information will eventually emerge, but maybe not as quickly as we'd like. So the goal of this challenge is to find innovative ways to cost-effectively, quickly, and accurately test if any hazard detection technology is working. So a few things we might want to try to test are if there are a lot of false alarms or the rate of false alarms, if there are different types of hazards that are not being detected accurately or that are posing problems, different specific situations, and of course the hazard detection rate overall. So if we're getting a lot of a lot of missed alerts, that's a big problem. That's something we need to be aware of. So in this area, we're looking for solutions either in the real world to test these technologies in the real world in operational road environments, or a simulated digital environment. So it could be using a game engine or a simulation to test the hazard detection technology. And let's move on to the final challenge. The final challenge is probably the one that requires the most innovative thinking, and that's the most challenging for startups to identify solutions for. And this is really around influencing drivers to behave safely. In the end, driver behavior is one of the main drivers of safety, of course. And while the vast majority of drivers are behaving perfectly legally and safely, there are some exceptions. So the goal of this challenge is to find ways to influence drivers to follow the law and drive safely in every way possible. A few example areas could be creative ways to prevent drivers from using their cell phones while driving, for example, to adhere to speed limits, or to pay attention as opposed to maybe falling asleep, or anything else. I'll be here at the end as well to answer any questions, but I think that pretty much covers an introduction to the challenges that were identified. Thank you.
Thanks, Pierre. Okay, next slide, please, Kat. I'm going to now go into a little bit more detail about the program itself. Next slide, please. So this is a two-phased program. So we have the trial design phase running from March to June, and then we will have a down selection of our cohort from 10 SMEs to 5 SMEs. So we'll select 10 in the new year, and then we will be down selecting in June to 5 SMEs to move on to the trial delivery phase. This will run from July to November 2024. So during the trial design phase, SMEs will have access to between £15,000 and £30,000 each to cover the costs of designing their trial. They will be working closely with National Highways and relevant Tier 1 suppliers. If you are selected to move to the trial delivery phase, you will receive up to £60,000 to cover the costs of delivering your trial, and you will again work closely with your relevant Tier 1 supplier and National Highways. And throughout this whole program, the trial design phase and delivery phase, I will be organising bespoke technical and commercial support for you. So this will look differently for different SMEs, and we will be designing a tailored program for your company. But it could be marketing support, fundraising support, business modeling support. We will be providing procurement support for everyone, as a really important component of this program is that there's that procurement element at the end of the program, and we will be running networking opportunities and workshops. Next slide, please. So this just kind of reiterates that support I've just mentioned and adds a little bit more detail. So we have those funding opportunities, that coaching and mentoring, the business development opportunities with National Highways and Tier 1 subcontractors, the ongoing technical support that you'll receive throughout the trial design and delivery phase, the procurement support I've discussed, and then at the end, we'll be showcasing your solution at an event to investors, industry members, and potential customers. Next slide, please. So here are some key dates. Our applications are open, and you have until midnight on the 31st of December to apply. I'm really hoping no one's going to be writing the application over Christmas, but if you really need to, you can. We will then be inviting successful applicants for interview on the 16th of January. We will have 2 rounds of interview, okay? So we'll have technical interviews on the 22nd and 23rd. You'll be given a slot, and then you will most likely go on to the final interview phase. So most people will just do both phases, the technical and the final interviews, and they are on the 29th and 30th of January. We will notify you of the outcome of those interviews on the 2nd of February, And our welcome event is the 7th of March, and it's vital that everyone attends. So yeah, mark it in your diaries. And next slide, please. I'm gonna go over how to apply now. And if you have any further questions about that, please, again, use the chat function. I see we've got 5 questions, which is great. Keep them coming. Next slide, please, Kat. Okay, so this is the eligibility for the program. So you must be an SME, so have less than 250 employees. You must be a UK registered company. This is a requirement to unlock that trial funding. Your innovation solution will preferably be at least TRL 6. We will consider lower TRLs, but it will kind of bring your score down. You must be able to address one or more of the challenge statements that Pierre has outlined with your solution that you're putting forward. You must be willing to complete a development, testing, or demonstration of your solution in a real and relevant environment. Kind of obvious. And you must be willing to travel on occasion to face-to-face meetings and events. We will do our absolute best to give you as much warning about these events as possible. Next slide, please. So I've got a QR code here that you can scan with your phones, and it will take you directly to our website where you can apply. If you don't want to do that, Kat is going to share the link in our chat, but you can also just Google the name of the program and it should come up pretty high up those search results. So we have provided on our website an application guidance PDF, and I'd really like to stress that you should read this in detail before you apply, because it contains all the information you could possibly need, or we like to think so. And finally, I'd like to say that your application will be saved automatically, so you don't need to worry about doing it all in one go. You can go back up until, 31st of December to complete that. Next slide, please. The scoring criteria is here. We have 25% weighted on your solution, so we'll be looking at your unique selling points, the risk of your technology, monetization, potential of your technology, the market, and any additional risks. We'll be weighting your team with 10%. I'd like to point out that we anonymize applications, so we ask you to please not mention names or any distinguishing criteria in this section. This is so that we can maintain a non-biased application scoring process. We'll be looking at the skills, experience, and communication of those individuals. Then we have 15% weighted on traction and investment readiness. So we'll be looking at the revenue you've generated, any contracts signed, investment received, or investment readiness, or any intention of any of these things. 25% will be weighted on your safety business case. So we'll be looking at affordability, implementation, and safety impact. And finally, we have 25% on program fit. So do you meet those challenges? Is your trial feasible? Is your TRL appropriate? And are you based in the UK? Next slide, please. Great. Okay, we have come to the end of the presentation section, but we have lots of time, which is great, to answer your questions. So can I please invite everyone from National Highways to turn your mics on and turn your cameras on? And Pierre, thank you. So audience, we have Ben and James, who've met from National Highways to answer your questions. We have Pierre, who did the challenge scoping exercise, and we have James Armstrong as well. And we'll just work out who's the best person to answer the question as it comes through. So first from Wesley, we have, are you already using connected car data to look at harsh braking on the National Highways network?
Good question. So we are collecting floating vehicle data, so connected car data, but I don't believe that that's something that we are specifically looking at currently.
You're
Thank
right,
you.
Ben, and I don't think it's in a live environment, and definitely not the hash breaking. I've seen the categories you are collecting, so hopefully that answers Wesley's question.
Great, thank you. So someone else has asked, relating to radar, if existing radar systems can produce data which is currently not tested or trialed, would this qualify for the program under the challenge that's related to?
Do you want me to
want to try?
one?
Sorry, what was that? James, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention that there's a couple of questions on radar and its exclusion. I just wanted to clarify that point a little bit. It's not so much that it's excluded, it's just we have an existing SVD radar system, and being quite honest with you, really, that's had a lot of criticism in the public domain. So I didn't want to convey the fact that we were trying to replace anything. We're not. It's had some unfair criticism. This is supplementary. This is new stuff. So to get to the specific question, it's probably a difficult one to answer because it's proprietary system that we have with our stock vehicle detection. Whether that can or can't provide more data for others to analyze, I believe it's probably something we'd consider, but I couldn't answer it categorically now. So Pierre, back to you.
I was just going to say the reason that was chosen is partially because we need game-changing innovations. If it's about a small improvement, an incremental improvement on the existing system, it's out of scope. If it's about a really genuinely innovative, game-changing way of doing this and using maybe the same detectors, I think it could absolutely be considered under challenge number 1. Obviously, as you said, to the extent that it's feasible, if you can't access the data, if you can't access the radars or use the data, then there's a different problem.
Yeah. I think that there's a supplementary bit coming in the chat about augmenting, and that's specifically is challenge number 1, isn't it? It's exactly that.
Thank you. So there's been a question about who the tier 1 suppliers are. I am not going to share that information yet because we have not concluded our discussions with those tier 1 suppliers, but they are going to be the relevant ones. So there's a question on, is this only for new products? It can be for a product already on the market. My colleague is replying to that live, but I'll just say that it will be great if it's already on the market. That's fine. There's a lot of other different criteria areas. If you fit the, if you're an SME, if you are, in the UK and you meet the challenges and you could benefit from the support of the program, lots of other factors, 100%, we definitely want to hear from you. So can the SME work with a consortia of companies out of the UK to apply? Bex, can I pass this question on to you? Are you able to speak? Because I'm not 100% on this one.
Hello, sorry, I'm just trying to get to grips with the buttons on Zoom. Yes, absolutely, you can. Sorry, I was just replying to a different question. Can you repeat the question, please, Natasha?
Yeah, sorry to kind of throw you in the deep end.
No, it's fine.
So, can you apply with a consortia of other companies that are outside of the UK?
Yes, you can. You can subcontract to non-UK based companies. That's absolutely fine, as long as the lead applicant is from the UK. And the critical thing to mention here is that the solution in question must be fully deployed in the UK. But just to reiterate, you can subcontract and purchase equipment from suppliers outside of the UK. If you need any clarification on that, please feel free to get in touch with us and we'll be happy to discuss with you.
Thank you. So there's a question here about what state, sorry, they keep jumping around. What state do the solutions need to be in by the end of the program? It's quite difficult to say because it depends on what TRL you are at, but you'll be designing a trial with National Highways and the tier 1 organizations that is about getting your technology to the next stage where it can be, it's also vague because it depends on what the solution is, but it's kind of unique to solution in your trial, but you'll be setting out there's a lot of information in our supporting document on that, but if you have any questions, my email address is on the website and we can kind of talk about that in a bit more detail. So another question from Martin. It was mentioned that innovation can, oh, that's the radar question again. Okay, apologies. Will any data from National Highways that is requested be shared with trial winners, e.g. MIDAS data, data from the Behavioural Insights team, etc.? National Highways?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to refer to Ben on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now there are some complications with that, obviously, if depending on what data it is you're looking for. If it's available to us, by all means, you can certainly have it. If, for instance, it's something that is intellectual property of another company, that'd be obviously much harder to do. But anything that we're able to publish, we will share with you, absolutely.
Okay, great. So from Wesley, how does the SME get 15 to 30k, and what are the metrics of how they receive either amount? So in your trial, in your application form, there's a spreadsheet that we ask you to fill out and then re-upload to outline the costs of designing your trial. So that will be the amount. So you'll have to justify, you know, why you need X amount to deliver the delivery phase of your trial. And that's how we decide. Is there a focus on improving the safety of vulnerable road users, e.g. cyclists?
Do you want me to take that one? And
Yeah.
I'm going to combine it with another one later about a list of the hazards. So to answer both of those, if it can be achieved, you know, we have responsibility for the entire strategic road network and its users. So regardless of how it is, if it fits in with the way the challenges are set up, then good. And on the hazards themselves, it's not so much as, you know, a hazard log that we're trying to tick off a load of hazards against. We've defined hazards quite broadly in terms of anything where a road user, whatever type of vehicle or not that they're using, has to do something different from the norm. So they have to take evasive action, or they have to brake, or they have to cross the road. So we're not proposing to share a list of hazards to target. It's anything. And we deliberately kept it that broad.
And just to build on that, literally, we're using an extremely wide sense of the word. A road user using their cell phone and texting is a hazard. So very wide. That's an example. That's anything that you could consider dangerous that you could remove from the road potentially would be considered a hazard.
Thank you. So there's just some more quite specific questions here. Would you be providing access to existing CCTV, National Highways?
Ben, again, I'm going to go for that one.
Oh, sorry, slightly distracted. Short answer is yes. It depends how much you require and at what is recorded okay, or are you okay looking for live? It's a big ask. As you can imagine, it's quite a large data set. But yes, we can obtain CCTV footage for your software.
There's a similar... Oh.
Sorry, go on, Natasha. Yep.
There's a similar question here, Ben, about National Highways' own data, and will it be made available to applicants?
I thought we'd answered that one, but yes.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. No, it's similar but different. Yeah.
And again, something similar. Where can we find technical information about the existing radar technology? I think it's just kind of answered, but
yeah, I'll just add a little bit to that. I suppose the provider, their tech specs are available on the web, so there's nothing secret about that. And the Office of Rail and Road provide performance information about us, and that'll be on their website, and there'll be another report by the 18th of December. So the first annual report is there, and that's what we're working to at the moment, developing the second report.
Thank you. So someone's asked if we can share the PDF guidance link. So I am just going to share it with everyone.
Natasha, I think one or two have been missed on the list. It is
Yeah.
jumping about. I think there was a question, is this for technology solutions only, or are physical hazard protections measures applicable? I think that one was missed.
Or applicable.
Sorry, Pierre?
Any type of solution, whether it's physical or not, I think is in scope, except if James has a different view.
Nope. Thank you, Pierre.
Yep. Okay.
Can't seem to share this link with everyone. Okay, given the 3-month phases, how long would access really take for the trialing and validation? Don't understand the question. If you could maybe add a bit more detail, that'd be really useful. Can offshore developments be considered, or does it all have to be onshore? Pierre, I believe the answer to this is, well, I'll let you take it.
I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer that.
Oh, okay. National highways?
I wouldn't know. We might have to come back on that one.
Okay, we'll come back on that question. Will you balance winners across all challenges? No. So ideally, we want a SME per challenge to get onto the delivery phase, but we will not be using that to make decision. It's about a lot of different factors, you know, the trial design and the need for the solution, and yeah, just lots of different factors. So okay. When are National Highways analog CCT cameras likely to be upgraded to 1080p digital? Very technical.
Ben, for that one.
Oh, thanks, James. Can I say eventually? I don't think it's in the immediate plan. I would have to come back and find if we have got a defined date for that. I know there's some renewals work underway at the moment, but I'll have to check internally.
Okay, thank you. Will you be looking specifically for solutions on M roads, A roads, or A roads as well?
It's the entire SRN, so if it can be applicable for all the better.
So thanks, James. There's a question about how we define hazards on this accelerator. I know you've covered that, but the question says, is it drivers specifically or road users in general, e.g. cyclists? I know you've discussed this, but could you just reiterate for Craig, please?
Oh, sorry, I can't find the question. Whereabouts is that one? Or can you repeat
just near
it?
the bottom, Craig Brew, so he's asking, yeah, is it just drivers specifically or road users in general, e.g. cyclists?
It is road users in general, and I'm sure as we get through the process, we'll be looking to target areas of largest risk. So it's open.
Okay, thank you. So there's a question that I don't fully understand, but I'm hoping National Highways will. If we need to demonstrate the functionality, then we require a real world test. Can we deploy on infrastructure for that test? If so, how long would that take? Oh, yes, I think the answer is yes for that. But maybe James, could you take that?
I'll probably share with Ben on this. Yes, but it depends. You know, if someone wants to build a new bridge over a road, that's not going to take 3 to 6 months. It depends.
Yeah, there's a lot of requirements we have with structural approvals and things, and obviously attaching into our comms network and power, etc. It's possible, but depends what you're trying to put out the roadside. I think it's fair to say.
Okay, thank you. Is it possible to apply for and be awarded one or more challenges with different solutions? So I'm assuming this company has a couple of different solutions that apply to different challenges. I would say apply. We haven't had that happen before in my experience, because SMEs tend to be having one solution to one problem, but please do apply, and you never know.
And just to build on that as well, in case this was the intent of the question, if you have one solution that addresses multiple challenge, that's absolutely fine. A lot of them do have some overlap. So obviously, for example, between challenge number 3 and challenge number 2, there's a little bit of overlap. You might have a detection system that includes some elements of testing. Absolutely, if it cuts across multiple challenges, you just need to check the box for multiple challenges.
Thank you. Does National Highways already have a data set that identifies potential hazards that could be used to train an object detection AI model?
That's a
I'm
great.
not quite sure on it, to be honest. I don't know, Ben. I don't think it exists in that respect. So I don't think here's the data set, go and train against it. I don't think.
No, I think that's one for us to come back on.
So, interesting question up next. For the trial, would this be a live trial on the SRN, or is there a designated site facility? If it is a live site on the SRN, would we have access to control of the CCTV as part of the solution? James, I'll let you guys start on this and I might add to it.
Yeah, please do add in. So potentially yes for the live trial. So that goes back to the answer about can things be installed on the network. I suppose what I just want to steer away from slightly is a lot of the questions are about physical things. That's not the only intent of it. So it's not just about products at the side of the road. So I just want to make sure we're happy with that. But in principle, yes, and access to the live network if it's safe, if it can be done, as long as it probably doesn't need to connect to our network, then they're all things that make it easier.
Thank you. So can we run past our solutions to the highways team to select what to trial?
I think it has to be anonymized, doesn't it, Natasha? So
Yeah.
it'd be difficult.
I think that is the application, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the
We're
application.
on the panel. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an anonymized application form. Okay, so would you be allowed to trial messages on matrix signs to support the solution?
It's a tricky one. We probably couldn't change the agreed message set because we don't own that. That's owned by the Department for Transport. There's a potential, if it's an existing message, for something to trigger it, either to trial it, proof of concept, or even in a live environment. There's a potential.
Yep. Or if not triggering the actual sign, we could certainly...
A simulator of sorts, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to revisit the question about the phases. I know no one's kind of reiterated what that question meant, but I think I understand. They're sort of saying, have we given enough time? So CPC and National Highways have worked together on 3 previous accelerators, and we have kind of fine-tuned the process to give ourselves enough time. On the flip side of that, the whole point of an accelerator is we accelerate the process. So we're working really closely with National Highways and Tier 1s in this instance to make sure that we get what we need done in the time given. Okay, so if the solution already exists in the market, are you saying that the name of the solution needs to be anonymized in the application process? So you don't need to anonymize the name of your product, but we're not going to go and Google it, and we don't want any names of your, the people in your company. Actually, yeah. Sorry, that's wrong. We do need you to not use the name of your company in your application process. The anonymization of forms is new, so that's why I wasn't 100% clear on that. But yes, please do not include the name within the body. So it's clear from the application form, once you're in it, what needs to be anonymized and what doesn't, because obviously we do need to know the name of your company. Do the Tier 1 partners include a communications provider, or are we expected to work with existing National Highways at communications? NW. Network, cool. Ben?
I'm not sure. I don't think we've finalized who the Tier 1 partners are as yet.
Yes.
So again, it depends on what the solution is.
Yeah, I'm guessing SIM cards and stuff like that, and it's not entirely relevant to the tier 1, but if the product can communicate without our network, good.
Yeah. So there's been another question about what happens if we have more than one product which could be submitted. Please do submit both of them in separate applications. We have a question about eligibility to apply if the POC has been funded under different CPS program. I'm assuming they mean CPC. The answer is we do ask you to tell us if you have gone through one of our accelerators and receive funding through us. It depends, because we've got different funding bodies for different things. It just depends. So please do apply. And if you're worried, email me directly, please. So you cannot mention a company name, but we can mention any existing product being used as part of the solution.
Could I ask a question on that? Maybe there's a clarification to be had. If you're talking about a product that your company isn't manufacturing, then that should be fine. If you're talking about a product that your company is making, where if you Google the product, it makes it no longer anonymous, then probably that would be out. Natasha, did I get that right?
Yes.
So anything that makes you identifiable or your company identifiable is not allowed.
Yeah.
Natasha, so clarify a little bit on this whole anonymous thing that seems to be generating quite a few questions. This is to help us assess the I won't say tenders because that's not the right word, but assess the applications without having any preconceived views or anything like that. So it's actually a better thing. It's not something to be concerned about. It's just we mark them on the merits of what we see.
Yes. So another question is, are tier 1 suppliers allowed to be part of the team given the SME would be the project or applicant lead? Yes, that is fine. Can we include images, screenshots of our product software in the application? So there's a couple of places where you can upload supporting documentation, and you will see that prompted throughout the application form.
I think, Natasha, that ties back to the same question or point about making it an identifiable company with the pictures. So yeah, refrain from logos, etc., or if it's a distinct product.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
So yeah, it's difficult, but what will happen is I will go through everything, all applications, before that they are seen by any scorers. But you know, be really grateful if you didn't give me too much work and you could anonymize yourself. Okay, so the questions kind of jumped around a bit. If anyone on the panel can see a question that hasn't been answered, please do let me know. I'm just trying to scan some now. I think they have been answered, but we will answer any questions that come through by email as well. So right at the bottom of the website is my email address. We will also be responding to all of these questions in writing, and create an FAQ document that's going to go on the website. And then a link to this recording will also be on the website. Okay, I'm just going to pause there to see if anybody wants to put any more questions in. I think there are some more questions that just come in. We are aware of the challenges running demos within an operational ROC. Will HREAL development access to ROCs be available during any? And then the question just stops. So if anyone from National Hires wants to assume what this person has finished writing, please do.
So the Regional Operations Centre, it's obviously a live environment. They're working, so we can't interrupt what they're doing. And I know it sounds like a question from experience. Yes, getting access is difficult. We can't interrupt what they're doing, like I said, But going back to my intro slides, this is something the CEO and the exec are keen for us to develop. So that should give us a bit of momentum if we need to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think
Natasha, there's
yes.
one more. I'm intrigued about the question about a winter hat. Well, I'm intrigued about what that solution could be. About testing between July and November. I know Ben had similar challenges trying to simulate all weather conditions and things like that. It wasn't specifically a winter tool, but I suppose it depends. It depends. Can it be simulated or what have you? But I'd be keen to see what's being proposed on that. Ben, I don't know if you've got anything to add on that one.
It's I don't. I think it's a very good point. You know, if we're thinking image-based systems, then yeah, around the winter solstice is always preferable. I think November testing, you know, we're getting towards the darker days, as we're unfortunately feeling now, but it's something that we can certainly discuss as part of the testing.
So there's been a question about anonymization. How do we extol the virtues of the team members if those virtues can easily identify the individual? So if you put someone's name in an application, it's really easy to go and find that person's LinkedIn profile, etc. If you do not put their name in, you do not put the company in, you just put, say, their job title, which could apply to many different companies, and then you explain their background, it would take a lot more work for someone to go and find that individual. And they're also not going to do that. The scorers know that this is an anonymized application. So we just don't want company names and we just don't want people names. It's just to make it more difficult for anyone to quickly recognize this person, say they've met them before, when they're scoring the application. That is the purpose of this.
It doesn't have to be detective proof.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be detective proof because we're not going to be detectives. Okay. Can you please explain the second part of the funding process? Should an estimate be shortlisted? Okay. So what's going to happen is the trial proposal document will be written up and the SME will be presenting the trial proposal to a national highways panel, and they will have their tier one sponsor that they're working with kind of supporting them in that presentation and answering any questions. And we will make the sort of scoring process very clear, you know, at that time. And then, yes, you will be shortlisted, and then you will, as part of the trial proposal, have kind of fine-tune the amount of money you're asking for, and that's how you will receive the second bout of funding. Okay. You're welcome, Anton. Any other questions? Okay. Great. As I said, if I have missed your question because this chat is jumping around like nobody's business, we will be responding to them in writing. Thank you so much for joining in, joining us, asking questions. Please do go to our website. The QR code is on the screen. Please do email me with any questions you have, and have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.